But you see that? Oh, that's weird. See, I knew it had a trans cooler, so that line. I guess all you had to do is just take the little clip out that was in there, and you can push the lines off. I totally twisted them out of the trans cooler. Didn't wreck anything. And I got everything back together how it was supposed to be. So, the next thing I did is pull this top hose off from the rad right there. It's kind of a bitch because this box is in the way. And then I undid this lower one from right back there. Apparently, that is an oil cooler. I didn't know that. Also did or undid the lower rad hose. The lower rad hose you can get right from the side. Kind of have to undo some clips. So that clip comes out from right there. This one comes out from right there. I broke it off because I was getting mad. Once you have that out of the way and you get that lower rad hose off, point her down. Kind of move some more shit out of the way. And I might be good to pull it out here. There were some pieces down there that went to the condenser. So I pulled those out of their clip and away from the rad and the fan. So now I'm going to see if I can pull it out. Well, that looks a lot better. So, just to recap, that goes top of the rad. It's like a cooler line for something. I think that's an oil cooler, top oil cooler, and bottom oil cooler. So those are those lines. This is a trans cooler line. This one down here, trans cooler line. This was clipped into the bottom of the rad. So was this one, but I think I broke it off, maybe. And so was this one, so was that one. This was bolted onto the back of the rad. That was bolted onto the back of the rad. The lower rad hose. This is for the condenser, which I unplugged to have more room. So I guess it's just down to labeling where everything goes and where everything is, and I gotta take the rest of the hoses off. Kind of move the wiring harness out of the way. Figure out what the fuck I'm gonna do with this. But that was a bitch. But it's possible. Just gotta remember that when you take all that stuff off, especially your oil cooler lines and your trans cooler lines, plug them off. Stick a rag in there, tape it. Do not want any dirt getting in there. I'm not really concerned about the rad hoses, but I'll still plug them off. Just because wintertime. I still gotta tape that off yet. But we're getting there. And this is only day 2, and I've done all this by myself now. And I haven't seen any other people post a video about how to do this, so yeah. I can't stress this enough how drained I am. So I got a decent amount more done, but not as much as I wanted to. Got the fuse box taken out. I got top hose there taken off. That hose. Both the spots are down there. And thought there was one more. Oh, never mind. I was for the It's either for the top of the rad or not even sure. This battery box. Those all gotta come off. And then there's other shit down there I have to be taken care of. Not very much longer. These two hoses here. This first one comes down, goes into that backup hookup. Sorry. Yes, this bottom hose here goes into that one. This hose goes into the top of the rad. These two connectors from the main harness. Square fucker goes in there, clips onto the side. Smaller one goes on the bottom. The hole works, screws in to that bracket. Oh, well, that is day number 2 done of working on the truck. I got a lot more done today than I did yesterday, but I also did get here a little bit earlier, but it's good. There's not a whole lot left to go, and I could start pulling the motor out. That's where it's at. So, second weekend, me here working on the truck. Got a few things left to do before I can pull the motor out. I gotta take off the compressor. I gotta, undo all the belts and everything. There's a few more grounds I gotta take off. Probably gonna take the plenum off. I have to see if I can get the steering moved out of the way or if that's gonna be a problem. I gotta undo motor mounts, the exhaust, and see what else is in the way. I don't know what's at the back end of the motor, but we got to try and take care of everything that's left over and see if we can get this thing pulled out today. I don't have much time. I only got a few hours, so I'll just kind of run through it, and when I'm all done working, I'll go over bolt sizes and what I took off in what order, and just kind of go from there. So, got a few things done. Took the plenum off. It was just 10 mils. 10 mil bolts or screws or whatever holding it in. They're still in the plenum. Took the plenum off. And easiest way to do that without undoing this, because this ground sits way at the back, right in there somewhere with a bolt. The easiest way to take it off is by undoing all these little clips. Once you have the plenum off, kind of shove paper towels in there. And then I had, then I took the tensioner off. So you can't even pry on it to get the belt off. You have to actually take the tensioner bolts out, take the tensioner off. Yeah, so these ones up here, so those are 15s. Yeah, so pull those out, take the tensioner off, you can take your belt off. I put the bolts back in just so I wouldn't forget where they go. After you get that done, you'd pretty much be left with the water pump, the alternator, and the compressor. So I took the alternator off first. I think the alternator was also 15s, so it was just 2 of them. I think I think they both went in right there, if I'm right. Yeah. or maybe one of them was on the compressor. I'm not even sure. I think the alternator bolted up by itself, but you had to take both those out to get at the water pump. The water pump does come off next, and all the bolts that hold the water pump together are 13s. So I think you'd have, fuck if I can even remember where the fuck they all go. Well, you got 1, 2, and 3, and 4 down there, and then if I can remember the rest, 5 and 6 and 7, 8, 9. Pretty sure 9 of them, if I'm right. Once you get that off, you have to have the bolts off for the compressor, and the compressor will have a nut on the bottom that goes in like right there, and it'll have this super long bolt. I think that super long bolt goes in right there too, and it the compressor bolts up to the water pump. It's got its own little, I don't even know. I'm already drained. I've been doing this for like 3 hours, 4 hours straight now, but once you get the bolts out for the compressor, or this top one for the compressor, and you get the nut off, you have to use a 3/16 socket, because there is a set of threads that thread in right there. It's got a 3/16 end on it, so you have to actually screw that out to get this off. But the water pump sits right in here pretty nicely. So after you have all those other bolts off and everything, and after you have this clip off, you can pry the water pump out, and at the same time it's going to drop this down. So this will kind of drop down at the same time that the water pump comes off. You can take the pump off. Once you have the pump off, you pull this son of a bitch back, and there's going to be another clip that's underneath. And it's a really, really big fuck around. And it has a locking clip on it. See how it's upside down? That's how it sits. It has a locking clip on it, if you can see that. The only way to get at that is from underneath. So you got to use something that's kind of bent that you can use to work around in there, and then slowly pry up on that. And if you can manage to get that locking clip undone, you hold the whole compressor up, and at the same time you have to push. There's like a little tiny black pin at the top. You have to push that in and push it forward at the same time, and it'll come off. And then this whole works is free. So after that, I've kind of just been fucking around trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. I took the ground off up there, and these are the spark plug wires. That's a heat shield, but I've never seen anything like that. That's a little different, you could say. So if you're going to take all these off, which you pretty much have to if you want to take the exhaust manifolds off, just pull up on the rubber piece. Guys, I guess that's kind of all hooked up together. So pull on that rubber piece pretty firmly and just twist it side to side. You can get them all off. Oh, I guess I should probably mention how I got the belt off the compressor. I used a pry bar and a screwdriver, and so I pried the belt up, and then I got a flathead in there, and I just kind of worked it around along the side until I could take the pry bar and move it over and slowly get that belt off. Yeah, lots of fun things, but take these off, and then these are all 1/2 inch. These are all 1/2 inch. I don't think I have my shit here with me, but Seafoam makes some really, really good penetrant. It's called Deep Creep. If you get the Deep Creep, spray it in there, let it sit for like 5 or 10 minutes, and literally these will just come out, man. Like nothing. I'm not really having a problem. But this heat shield is a big pain in my ass. So I guess once I get all these loosened off, it'll be underneath to take off the 3 nuts on both sides of the cats. And then I can pull the manifolds out. So it is now 2 days later from last time I worked on the truck. I gave up. The other day. I was just fighting. I was in a brawl, and I wasn't afraid to admit that I lost. I got to the exhaust manifolds. I was able to get the bolts out of the manifolds that were on the motor. I left one in on each side, and then I got to work trying to get it unbolted from the cats on both sides. And I ran into some problems. I quit because it was getting dark, and I had been fighting underneath that fucking truck for probably an hour and a half. Finally realized that I wasn't going to be able to get the bolts out unless I took the inner fenders out. So I did that. I took the rest of the T15 screws out of the inner fenders. I pulled them out. After I did that, I was able to have some luck in getting them off. But that's not all I had to do. I also had to take off the heat shields. So I took the heat shields off of both the manifolds, and then I guess the cats have 2 heat shields on each one of them. They have one that goes around the actual cat, and then another one that goes in between the top of the pipe and the closest part of the firewall. So I had to take that top one off of each side and both of the heat shields off of the manifolds, and that also helped. So I ended up getting 2 studs and nuts out of both sides, but I still have one more to go on each side. The one on the driver's side, I have to take an O2 sensor off to get at. The one on the passenger side, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I have no room, and I don't have a long enough wrench. I can't overlap wrenches because there's no room for me to even try and get anything else other than one wrench in there. I can try and just loosening the stud off because it's a 7mm on the end, but I have to use a fucking 1/4 inch socket wrench. So I still don't know if I'm going to be able to get that off yet. I just got off work. I had a rather busy day. I am already a little stressed. I have a headache. I'm sore. I'm ready to spend an hour at most trying to get those off. And if I can come here after work for this week and work on the truck little bits at a time, I'm going to try my damn best. But I'm fucking tired already, and I'm already frustrated and just feel like I want to sit down for a little bit, just on my feet all fucking day long. We finally have a nice sunny day, but it's so fucking windy, and there was so much going on. So I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to see if I can get those last two off. And then I'm going to have to remember everything I did and all the sizes and everything, because I was able to use an impact for 2 on each side. But the rest of it, no chance. I also have to label the bolts I took off as well, or else I'm going to forget what the fuck they go to when I go to put the truck back together. And I'm also going to have to figure out a plan for how I'm going to get everything back together when it's all said and done. Unless I put headers on it and give myself a little bit more leeway with how I do things, it's going to be the exact same fuck around. It's going to be the exact same problems. I've never had to work on something that is such a big pain in my ass. And I'm no mechanic by any stretch. I haven't went to school or nothing like that. But my God, how do they do it? I can't find anything online on how to do this. Let's get at it. See this? This is called winning. Got it fucking loose. Like, yeah, that's what I mean. You got no fucking room. There was hardly any room for a wrench. And just the way that the nut was sitting was not a whole lot of fun. I couldn't get the fucker out. I started using a pry bar, so I'd pry the exhaust down, and at the same time I wedged all this shit in there, put a fucking impact on it, and I went. And I didn't get it loose with an impact, but I did vibrate it enough that I could get a fucking socket wrench on here and start moving it. Thank God. This is the passenger side. Driver's side. I got one left right there. And where that hole was an O2 sensor. And if I spin this around, you can kind of see how big of a fuck around it is to get in here with a 7/8 wrench. I ended up not even using a 7/8 wrench to get it loose. I used an adjustable wrench. So yeah, these are 15s. If you want to just try and take the stud out, it's a 7mm. The O2 sensors are 7/8. As soon as I get this shit off, I'm fucking taking the manifolds off. I'm going home. So it is officially the next day, and I'm back under here again, working more, and I'm gonna take that guy off right there. It's pretty much just down to like whatever else I can do now to get this motor out. All the main shit is really taken care of, but I have a lot more of the fun stuff left. A lot more of the fun stuff. Oh shit, I almost lost it. So I do got this guy turning free now. Might actually be able to pull it off with my hand, but I don't know if I want to do that. It's now Friday, and almost there. So I undid this clip from the bottom of the motor here. There's a screw down in here, so there's a nut, and then there's a screw and a nut. So I had to take that screw or that nut off first to get this kind of stud out from the side right here. And that's what this line hooks up to. And then back in there was a clip on top right there, and it clips into a spot right down in there. Something else I did, I undid the trans-cooler lines to the back of the block. So I undid those. What else did I do? There was a couple lines in here. I don't think I can grab them now. I might have pulled them out. There was a couple lines in here. There's this one. That one right there. So that had a clip on it, and all I had to do was take it off, and that plugged into right there. And then there was another harness clip with that same kind of heat shield tape on it that clipped in right there, and it had like a little plastic fucking thing going around it. And then I think there was a bracket that was holding it on, so I took it off from right there and it dropped down. What else did I do? So after I figured out I had to take that screw off down there, I took that off, came around, and just because this moves right, so that is kind of clipped into the bottom end of the motor all the way around. So I undid this. This is another screw. So it's got the nut, and then another nut on the back of it. So you undo this one. It'll still be tight to that hole. And then I think this is part of that too. I think that also goes in there. So then once you have that nut loose, you can take that nut off and pull it out, and it'll drop that down more. But in order to pull this out, you have to undo the 15 mil bolt that holds it on at the back of the motor by the oil pan. There's also a kind of clip like this under there that's holding the lines together, so that kind of freed it up a little bit. Let's see, that was from the compressor. These hoses here, they did run not underneath of this. I just kind of pushed those up, but they ran down and around and through here, and they came down, and that's where this came from. That came from down in here, and that's where that clip came from. It plugs into the back of this right there, and then that screws into right there. That there was also another small harness clip that I had to undo. I don't really want to get all the way underneath here again, just because I won't have to come back underneath here until I take the starter off. But there was that one that I had to pull off. You can kind of see the end of it right there. And then there was another one somewhere. I can't remember. But that was the bolt that I had to take out for the trans cooler lines. So I took that out. I'm pretty sure it's also one of the bolts that holds the tranny together with the block. So I'm kind of just keeping it to the side for now, just in case. Slow progress, but there's almost nothing left to do underneath here other than like taking the bolts off from the back of the tranny into the motor, but I still have to take the starter off yet. And then I think there's one thing I gotta do before I try and take the starter off, and that's fuck around with this, because this, I might be able to just pull the harness up. This is the same sort of dealio on the other side, where that one kind of plugged in, and then beside it, it had that other heat shrink or whatever clip in. This was that kind of clip dealio I was talking about for over here. And it's kind of a bitch to get off. So I gotta pull that off and take the clip end off and then see what else I'm dealing with, because I gotta figure out how to fuck to pull the starter off this goddamn thing. And then once the starter's off, it's like, okay, now it's go time. I think the other day I forgot to mention, I undid those hoses back there. There was they're not connected to anything. They have plug ends on them, but they're clipped in. They got fucky little push clips, kind of like that, but it goes into like a little steel bracket or whatever the fuck. Let's see if I can show you. Yeah. See, so that's kind of what I'm talking about. Steel bracket. I ended up just cutting the clips right off. Cut them right off because there's 2 layers of heat shield there. They're not going to fucking touch anything. They're not going to get in the way. If I want to, I'll just zip tie them back together. I'm not going to touch this ground. It won't come off anyways. If you want to try it to 15. I took it off from right there, and that was a 13. But I dealt with that on a different day. Cool. For right now, I gotta try and get this off, see if I can get the starter off. If I can get the starter off, then I think it's like just move shit out of the way, and then start undoing the motor from the tranny and undo the motor mounts. So it's officially Saturday. So damn near a whole week of going to work, getting off at 3:30 in the afternoon, you're going right over to the parents' house and working on the truck. I've got pretty much all the other small shit done, tied up, handled. I did get the starter out last night. I'll have to go over exactly what I did there. My first attempt at getting the starter off earlier in the week did not go as planned. I ended up wrecking one of my dad's extensions. But now that I have the starter off, and I have everything from the wiring harness off, every single extra screw and bolt and fucking connection undone, I can finally move all of that out of the way, pull it off to the right side of the motor, and start working at unhooking the torque converter. Once the torque converter is undone, it's all about undoing transmission bolts and then undoing the motor mounts. And then I should be able to pull it out. But we don't have, what is it? We don't have a normal engine hoist. We have something that I don't know how my dad got it, I forget. But normally, like if you do have a cherry picker, you don't have to take the hood off when you're doing an engine removal on these trucks, but in our case we are gonna have to take it off, which kind of sucks. So I might just do that if we don't get the motor pulled today because he's not around, then we might end up doing it tomorrow because I need a hand taking the hood off. I'm just driving there right now, paying as much attention to the road as I possibly can. Just holding my phone up. So it's about a half-hour drive to my parents' house. When I get there, I will go over exactly what I did to get the starter off, and what else there is that's left. Again, I haven't had a single source of information help me online. Everything that I could find was for a 2017 or probably even 2018 down to like a 07 GM truck, which doesn't really help me out. There is some stuff that's a little bit similar compared to a 2018 Chev, but harness locations and everything is different. I got a fly in here right now that's pissing me off. So this whole process has been a learning curve, and I'm curious to see when I get the motor pulled out exactly what I could have left alone to make this process go faster. So I'll pick it back up when I get there, and I'll show you what I did.